All right, today I wanted to talk about Arcane episodes 2 and 3. So I talked about episode 1 before, and I wanted to continue because so far I'm really enjoying this series. I think it's very well crafted, and the storytelling is very precise and very calculated. And so I think it has a lot of good stuff we can talk about here. So the story begins, or not begins, but continues with Vi and the gang are more or less in hiding. They are in hiding because the enforcers are after them, and there's a lot of pressure on the enforcers to get results and find what's going on. And so which we end up coming to is this dynamic here where we have Silco and his mysterious purple fluid, monster fluid of sorts, and he seems to be working with Marcus Marco of the enforcers, and the enforcers are after that. So basically you have this idea of many different sides at play. So we have Vander over here. He's trying to keep the gang together. He's trying to keep the police off the gang. He's trying to, figure out what to do about Silco. And again, at the same point, we're also introduced to another subplot, not plot, but a co-story, if you want to call it. What we have is it turns out the lab that the gang stole everything belonged to a fellow named Jace, who is a poor student who's at the studying at the university. And one of the things I do really appreciate about this show is that it takes a lot of the stuff that could be boring and really just completely cuts it out. Jace, it turns out, is poor, and he has a sponsor who's a rich family, and all of this dynamic is explained exactly kind of as quickly as I just explained it, where, hey, he's poor, he has a sponsor. It's not really, there's no detailing like, oh, this sponsorship program was started in 1741, and he's got a sponsor, bam. And it's because it doesn't matter, we don't need to know this detail. The story moves incredibly efficiently and very fast. The story is very quickly moving forward. There's no time for rest, there's no lulls. It's just continuing to go, which you can run into some issues with. The way you usually balance it is you have it run fast, but the action and tempo can still go up and down from there. You don't want to have it constantly at 9,000, or else it starts to get absurd. It's like in the Fast and the Furious, when they continually slam on the brakes. Like once you slam on the brakes once or twice, it really becomes hard and difficult to explain or believe when you do it for the third or fourth time. There's only so much, slamming on the brakes that you can do to go faster. For that. So the other thing that a co-story would do is it really breaks up the Vi and everything and lets you kind of see things from a different perspective. So what we have is Jace is getting super in trouble because it turns out magic is a big no-no, and it looks like he was dealing with magic. So he has to go before the council where they're going to decide his fate, his punishment. Heimerdinger meets him, and this is another thing that I do appreciate is the subtlety. I don't know. I think that's it. The subtlety of it, where Heimerdinger just shows up, and you understand that Heimerdinger, who is a professor, favors Jace because he shows up and goes, "Dear my dear boy, here's what you need to do. You need to tell him it was all a mistake, and that you're sorry, and you won't do it again, and you got a little ahead of yourself." And that's all you need to do. So Heimerdinger, you understand a few things. One, Heimerdinger likes Jace. He's rooting for him. He's been looking out for the boy. He doesn't think the boy did anything bad. You have all this mentorship thing that is communicated, and they don't explain too much that, hey, Heimerdinger is giving you a secret pep talk, or anything like that. There's no character at the end of it. This is something that I always make fun of Nolan for, because especially in Inception, you can really, especially watching the movie again, I understand why they did this, but for Inception, the dialogue is all, so something will happen, and then the character will be like, it's what just happened explains what happened. And this is the whole dynamic. And this is not great. This is not great. Nobody loves this. And so what you have this idea where the audience kind of figure out. That's what you want with dialogue, is you want there to be meat there. You want it to have something to it. from there. And so we can start beginning to see immediately the relationship of Heimerdinger and Jace. Heimerdinger is looking after him. He's giving him advice. He's saying, hey, this is how you need to get out of this situation. Because the other thing you realize is you also understand that Jace might just go up there and tell him, yes, I was researching this. Yes, I knew I was after magic. And yes, I'm going to keep doing it. No, I don't regret it. Which there's this big aspect of what will happen if he actually does that. And so we have all of this. And what we're doing is we're building it up. There's this fellow named Victor who shows up, who is kind of a jerk a little bit, or he just needles them. So he goes investigating and rummaging through all of Jace's stuff to determine what's dangerous from there. And you begin to see this dynamic from another side. The other thing it does is it gives us another perspective. It's the top side. Jace is in the university. All the council members, of which Heimerdinger, I believe, is one of them, are the ones who are pushing the enforcers to figure out what's going on. Who stole this? They're the ones pushing it. So we get a human face. It's no longer this unseen, inexplicable force or anything like that. We actually get to see a little bit more as to what's going on from there. So you have a bit more of an explanation from the other side. And so what we have here is it's an interesting point because and you'll see why when we get here. You have an aspect of the show is we can have a slower show or we can have a fast show. And what you could see here is right now is we have a new tense status quo, right? So the enforcers are looking for him, the gang's hiding, Silco's doing something nefarious. The council's up here doing their thing. The question is how long do you, and this is if you're ever writing a story or anything like that, how long does this status quo last? You could have this play out for like 3+ episodes. You could have the gang hide, they got to do another job, and it would be great. We'd enjoy it. You could have all these other aspects, but again, it just depends on what type of story you're trying to tell. Where are you trying to go? Where are you trying to lead? Is this story about Vi and Powder and Vander and the gang when they're young or not? Where do you want it to be? Or do you immediately change the status quo again, and then again, and then again? And so what it is you have this options before you that you can really play out and see what it is. I really honestly, I haven't seen beyond it. I've seen some bits and pieces of what may come. And I feel like one aspect is that it's probably going to be very much fast. I think they're going to change the status quo a lot based on episodes 2 and 3. They're just going to keep this going and going and going because they're really trying to cover a lot of ground. So in terms of the story, the police are getting pressured to continue the hunt. And then Marcus, our favorite guy who we've introduced him before because he was the jerk who was kind of under the lady who really doesn't understand. She sends him out because, and again, this is another thing that all the character aspects really make sense. So the lady cop, who I can't remember her name or if it's even told, she sends Marcus out because he doesn't understand the world. She doesn't understand. And you also know that he would not stand for the fact that she's made a deal with Vander to let him run the underworld and they'll stay out and leave him alone because he doesn't understand. He just doesn't get. This is the best way forward to keep, because Vander's a good leader. He's fair. He's going to make sure they're not going to rebel. He's going to make sure nobody tries to kill each other. And she's going to make sure the enforcers stay that, top side is going to stay here and bottom side is going to stay here. And they're going to leave each other alone. And this is the tense piece that they basically built out. She understands that he would never get that. But it turns out, and so we get an aspect of his character. So developing on that, Marcus is now meeting with Silco. Again, this idea of he doesn't understand the world. He doesn't understand what's going bot side. And so he's making deals with Silco. And we know that's going to go terrible. The audience knows this. But what it is we're building tension. We're having this tension. So what you have is you have Vi and the gang hiding. This is kind of one aspect. And then you have them hiding while Silco's hatching a plot that's about to happen. And essentially, suddenly, it changes this whole scene because now we're just suddenly waiting for something to go terribly, terribly wrong or something or other. You're waiting for something to happen where the story is drastically going to suddenly change from here. So Silco's making this happen. Marcus goes into the bar to confront Vander and basically throws stuff everywhere. He makes a fool of him. He's doing everything to get a rise out of them from here. And what you have is you're building again off this character of Vander. What is Vander after? Does he do something clever to get, snub them and show them that they're not boss? No. He just continues to play the piece. He offers them free drinks. He doesn't fight. He doesn't really he's not in control of the situation or anything like that. He seems nervous and everything like that. You're going to understand, which is understandable, because what is he trying to do? He's trying to keep his people alive. He's trying to keep the peace, as it were. They go downstairs, and what happens is, all right, it's terrible drawing, but basically what happens is when they show up, this is the other thing I do appreciate about the show, is that everybody's operating like they're actually intelligent. So the cops show up. Marcus has a setup, or Vander has set up. Marcus shows up with the thugs to raid the bar, and they have a warning system. They actually plan. They said, hey, you know how the enforcers are going to sweep the entire streets and comb the underground looking for you guys? Yes. I think we should have a warning system. That's a great idea. And so what we have here is the guards coming through. They're going, and all the gang is hidden up here because they get been pre-warned. They're hanging up in the roof rafters, and they're kind of spreading themselves up like that scene in Home Alone 3, where the guy is hanging up in the roof rafters from there. And what happens is powder starts slipping. The cop is going around, and the powder starts slipping. And this is a really good scene because what we have is a lot of tension here. This is always good. Tension. Good tension. Tension is good. Generally, tension is always good from there. But the other aspect is, of course, it seems that powder is the one who may fail. And what this does is it really starts to continue to build on this idea of powder being the weak link. She is the point of failure. She's going to be the reason that they all fail. She's the one who, and then what we want as the audience, this is represented by Mylo. Milo's basically saying the dick part out loud. And he's saying this, that she may be the reason that gets them all killed. She's the weak link. She's no good. And Vi is constantly taking up the other end. And we naturally, because it's a conflict, are getting dragged into it. And we're taking Vi's perspective. Because again, this is their point of view. Powder's a kid. And she's trying. She's really, really trying. So this is a good scene to kind of build on this aspect that Powder's really trying. And the guards leave, and then Powder falls. And it's just like this breath of just, sigh of relief where Powder didn't screw it up. She didn't screw it up. We made it. We're saved from here. But it came really, really close from here. And it's all these little moments. And we'll see where these moments build towards. Because initially it all looks like it's completely unrelated from there. That there is all these events are just not tied. But this is what it is with a good story, is you want all of these seemingly random bits from here. Once you get to it, you can see, oh, hey, this is actually all according to plan and all according to character, which is the most important thing. Marcus coming in here, making deals with Silco, is all according to character because he doesn't understand what's going on. He's a pawn and he's ready to be used, and Silco's a manipulator, according to his character, is ready to use him. And so what we have is everybody's acting in accordance with their character. It's one of those things where Game of Thrones, Season 8, the infamous and terrible Season 8, did it where they had so many examples where characters just did, basically whatever they wanted, and nobody could explain why. And it was just because they wanted to, and that's it. And it's like, all right, that's the worst explanation ever from there. So Vander doesn't rise from the bait. He's too smart. They have a warning system. They get away. And what we have here is you're just building up to this idea of the pressure. The pressure is building. And then we're jumping back and forth between the gang in bot side and Jace in top side. And so what we have is it turns out that Victor is... Jace goes before his council meeting, and he does not do what Heimerdinger says. He does not say sorry and apologize and promise to move on. He defends himself and says, no, I'm right. And Heimerdinger moves to banish him. And so there's another moment where this subtlety is really playing off, because it's a question of, well, if Heimerdinger likes him, why banish him? And the reason, or I'm sorry, expel him. He doesn't vote to banish him, he votes to expel. And the reason why you get it is because a banishing has been thrown out before. And so if they agree to expel him, they won't banish him. And so you have this idea. And again, we're building up this. And they do introduce the other council members and kind of build their characters up and their background up, because this show is doing very good about introducing characters here and there so that you can pull on them at a later moment. You know, you can have these little moments with these characters spread throughout, and then you can call upon it later on, so that it won't feel like a Deus Ex Machina or anything like that. You know, suddenly a man appears to save the day, and that only works if that man appeared, you know, back on Thursday and on Friday and for 20 minutes on Saturday, and then on Sunday he shows up because he's been there the whole time. So it makes sense that he would kind of continually pop in and out from there. And so the gang nearly gets caught. Vi starts resolving herself, and we don't really know what she's resolving herself to, but you can kind of understand that she's going to do something. You know, the status quo has to change. The pressure is building. The pressure is building. The pressure is building. And so what we have here is it keeps building until Vander comes up and finds her, because somebody sends a message to the cops to meet them, and we don't really know who it is. And it turns out it's actually Vi, and Vander comes and finds her and says, "Aha, I know what you're up to." And he locks her in a basement because she was going to give herself up and fight. But he keeps that from happening. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, up at the lab, Jace has been exiled, and he is disgraced. His sponsor family no longer loves him because he is disgraced, and they only care about status and all that. He's this poor boy who has now disgraced them. But he starts working with Victor, who saved all of his research, and they are continuing to build on the research. And one of the council members, she gives them, the lady council member, she gives them 1 day to impress her, and she will not turn them in for breaking the rules and get them belts, because she sees potential in this. And so they're starting to work on their experiment. So what it does also, it gives us a break from the story. The other way it is this is another trick you can do where you can have super tense stuff, and then it stops, and then you jump up to the other one. And this could be kind of boring or not as exciting. But we want to see, we keep watching the show because we're trying to see what happens here. But what you do is you have the audience's attention goes here, and then of course this is cool. And usually what they'll do is they'll chain it. So this will be boring, but then right here it'll get super tense. And then we'll want to know what happens here, but then we'll jump back to here. You alternate each story aspect, so that way you can really see how you can chain them together. You can have, interesting story A is doing cool things, and then interesting story B jumps over, and so you can chain link it together to kind of get through all these aspects. So Jace doing boring research while in the shadow of something's building, you can have these two things kind of continually jump. It also gives you a break. It gives you an idea of more time is being passed, which is a really subtle thing, because you can understand that if you have a scene A and stuff's getting bad, and you have a scene over here, and then you come back and stuff's getting worse, the audience kind of fills in this over here, and we can go, oh my gosh, this has been bad for a good while. You kind of fill it in your mind, and it's really nice to have in terms of letting time pass, which especially for this one, we're trying to signify that the pressure is building, which explains Vi's action, which we understand. Vi wants to go fight the cops, which is accordance to her character. She's going to come up and fight. She knows how to punch things. She doesn't really know how to do that much else, but she knows how to fight and punch things, and that's what she does. That's kind of it. That's kind of all she does. So she locks herself, Vander locks her in a basement. He goes up, and it turns out Silco's up there with Marcus. And Silco brings Deckard along, who is purpled up. So he turns into a giant monster. And he kills the lady cop. She's dead. which is a great move because I didn't see that coming. You're changing the status quo. So the status quo is the Vander's deal with the lady cop. With her dead, everything changes. Everything is up in the air. And again, Silco is responsible for it, so we're waiting to see what Silco's going to do. You know, he keeps working toward this master plan. We don't understand what it is because there's a status quo that is keeping that in place or keeping that from happening. He's killing the lady cop. Everything is changing from here. The other thing is she's a very well-rounded and good character. That's the other thing is if you ever have flat or boring characters, everyone's going to expect that they can die and no one's going to care. You know, this is if your personality equals a red shirt, you're toast. You're going to die. And for those of you who don't know, the red shirt is a Star Trek reference where there seems to be an endless number of first mates, third mates, or something like that who are red shirts, and they always just get shot. They're the foil, the casualty foil for the show to show that the characters are in danger without actually killing any main character. So if your personality is really boring, everyone's going to kind of expect you to get shot up. Or if your personality is too perfect, you also make a great one. You know, this is Big Hero 6 had the brother who was basically, he was perfect, which is why he had to die. You know, his character existed. This is the other thing that they'll do with idyllic, scenic families. And you're just waiting. You're like, all right, somebody's going to kill him, and that's going to be the reason why this guy turned into a supervillain. Bam! You know, this is Magneto and X-Men, whatever that terrible movie was called. That one, a really bad one. Apocalypse, I think it was. They invented this whole family just to kill them so they could character motivation. So she kills the lady. They kill Benzo, which is really sad because Benzo, even though he looked a little bit ugly and sleazy, he was still, you know, he didn't deserve to die. And they kidnap Vander. They've kidnapped Vander, and it's very ominous. Ominous. And Vi is going nuts in the basement, and she's trying to figure out what to do next. All right. And then we're jumping back and forth. Again, we're still jumping back and forth. So what we have is we have Vi trying to figure out what to do. They just took Vander, and we can jump to another story. You know, Vander gone, and we can jump over here, and we can jump back. And you can use this as a strategy to kind of build your story and build it up from there. And just something to keep in mind. This is kind of what, this is why stories will do this. And so what we have is we have a sudden tempo change, and we have a sudden action change where we had the status quo and we have thoroughly blasted it to pieces. So what we had is we had a tempo where Vander was the strongest guy on the block. Silco was in the shadows, and the lady cop and them had an arrangement. We've broken that, killed her, kidnapped him. Silco's now the biggest guy on the block. And so now the audience is trying to figure out what will happen, because the status quo, if you maintain the status quo, the audience knows kind of what will happen. Because, well, Vander's going to be in charge, and he's going to keep the peace, and the lady cop's going to try and keep the peace as well. You have all this predictability. You have this idea where they understand where the story will go. Once you break that, the audience has no idea where it's going to go. So they're watching. You know, they're watching and waiting, trying to see what will happen. You really want to find out what exactly is going on from here. And so we continue with the story here. So Locke's in the basement. She gets out, and she gets the gang together, and they're going to go rescue Vander. They want to go rescue mission style because they can't go to the cops, obviously, because they are criminals, and it's the underworld. You don't go to the cops. You deal with it yourself. And this is the one where they start moving out of the little leagues and going into the big leagues. And so Vi tells Powder she needs to stay behind. And Powder doesn't understand why she can't go. And Vi goes, you know, I can't lose you. And so we have this idea, this repetition, kind of this aspect of, you know, Vander's constantly trying to shut Vi out because he's trying to protect her. She doesn't understand why. And then we have Vi, who's now shutting Powder out, who can't understand why she's getting shut out. And the reason why is because Vi is trying to to protect her. And you see this repetition, this idea, this cycle continuing from here. And it's great characters. All this is great character dynamic. The other thing is that Powder kind of seems to think that this confirms everything that Milo said. She's useless. If I was useful, they would take me with her. And all this fear and anxiety that Powder has is starting to build, and to where when Powder's left behind, she has a complete meltdown. It is just complete. She is just completely going crazy from here. And this is a really interesting aspect, is that I guess you could call it the Huck Finn fallacy to a degree. So Huckleberry Finn is basically an orphan, who's raised by an abusive, drunk dad who beats him, threatens to kill him, and doesn't take care of him, and no mother. He has no good role models, and yet he's an amazing kid. He's absolutely amazing kid. And of course, Twain is good enough to where he can get away with just about anything. For those of you who aren't familiar, Huckleberry Finn is the character. He's best friends with Tom Sawyer. And he's this amazing kid. He's moral. He has a great sense of justice. Everything from here. But then the question becomes, is that normal of people who grow up in this environment? And so the question then we have is, when Powder is told she needs to stay behind, well, she's had a lot of trauma. She has no formal parents. Vander's trying, but he's not exactly great at what he's doing. How is the kid going to react? She's an orphan. All she has is Vi and this expectation. This, Milo is saying she's useless. This is her whole world. And she's constantly been trying to prove that she's not useless. And she's constantly almost basically on the brink. She's almost useless. She keeps screwing things up. So if you want to think about it in terms of plot, how did we get here? Well, it turns out she almost fell off the building when they're trying to go into the laboratory. She almost fell off the building. From there, she lost the loot. And then once she lost the loot, you have this whole thing, and Milo's continually saying, you're useless. She lost the loot. She nearly gets them caught by the cops when she falls from the roof. She's hanging on to this pipe thing, and she's basically barely holds on, and then she falls. She nearly gets caught. And then now she's kind of come to this place where she is left behind. And this kind of starts to confirm. And again, this is great because all these little breadcrumbs are starting to crumble back together. And we get a piece of the mental status and the mental capabilities and mentally where Powder is. So it makes sense when she has a full-on meltdown. She has a complete meltdown because all of her worst fears are coming to life. And again, this is just a great aspect of use your action, use your story sequences. You want to have a story sequence where they almost get caught by the cops. Well, okay, so we're using this to develop Marcus's character. We're using this to develop Vander. You use this in multifaceted to show off each character and what's going on. And what you can have is, and of course, tension. That says tension. You can do it to do all of these, and it's doing so much work for you that what you're able to do is you're able to pack and compact so much story in it and so efficiently that not only is the audience interested, you can do all this cool stuff with it, and it pays off, and it works. And it works because the audience believes it. I was not in any doubt as to why Powder would have a meltdown. She seemed kind of, a little bit skittish, but she seemed there. Now she's having a full-on mental breakdown, and it makes sense. We believe it. So, Vi and the gang, minus Powder, so Milo and them go to rescue Vander. They come and find Vander, and it turns out it's all too easy, and of course, it's a trap set by Silco. And again, this is a great aspect of what they do. So Vi grabs Vander's gloves, and you can see her taking on his mantle, because Vander had these punchy metal gloves that you can use that he used. So she takes them now and she puts them on her fist to punch people in the face and beat them up from there. And then what we have is we have this interesting sequence where each of the minor characters' potential comes out. So Milo, who we introduced one scene before, again, we're talking about these breadcrumbs, one scene before where when they were breaking into the lab where he was going to use his lockpick. You know, he was doing all this lockpicking thing. He's trying to free Vander, who's tied to a chair. Clagger is chosen to find a way out, you know, find an escape route. And you have this whole aspect that's going on. And then Vi is doing what she's best at, is she's going to go punch bad guys. And so you have even members of the underground who are joining, or the underside, bot side, who are joining Silco, fighting that. And so Vi goes to fight them off while they try and free Vander. And Vander, again, I kept having this expectation of this Gandalf, this Obi-Wan character, where even though Obi-Wan dies in episode 4, there is this calm serenity. He is in control. You know, he is in control of everything. You had this sense, despite the fact that he gets killed by Vader, there's this control. Vander doesn't have this at all. You know, he's weak. We have this weakness aspect, which is adding to desperation, which is good because it's building the tension. We're trying to do it. And so far, the team starts doing it. Mylo, you know, Clagger, gets out. He builds an escape route. The escape route is completed. They get that out. Mylo frees Vander. He succeeds. And each of the team is doing their part well. But it turns out that Powder has snuck out. And she has one of these blue explosive ball things that she stole from the lab. And she throws one and attaches it to her contraptions. Oh, that's the other thing. Her little contraptions. All the contraptions she builds have failed. They've all failed. And so she's like, come on. This one has to work. You know, this one needs to work. Powder needs to redeem herself. And Vi is fighting them off, and Vi is about to get beat. She's about to go under when they just free Vander, and then suddenly the explosion goes off, and it kills a whole bunch of people. It kills Mylo. It kills Clagger. It almost kills Vi. And it almost kills Vander. And it kills a bunch of, it doesn't kill Silco, but it wounds him. And it kills a bunch of Silco's minions from here. And so what we have is we have this bizarre aspect where Powder's trying so hard not to fail. And the harder she tries not to fail, the greater the failure. Because she accidentally kills Mylo and Clagger, which was surprising. It was surprising in a number of ways. You know, they had an escape route. They freed Vander. Vi was, you know, she was going down, but she was holding her own up until they freed Vander. And then Powder comes in and does this and explodes and kills the two of them and nearly kills them. And this was kind of surprising to me, because the reason why it was surprising that they died, because they were well developed. And that was one aspect that I was really enjoyed to see, is just the fact that when you kill off well-developed side characters, it comes as a shock. It does that thing that everyone's trying to do because of Game of Thrones. You know, they're trying to be shocking by murdering their main characters or something like that. And it doesn't just mean, it's not necessarily because they're main characters, but because we spent time on them. We've invested in them. They're well-developed. You can kind of see it. But it kills both of these off. And then Deckard shows up, the purple guy, and he defeats Vander, and Vander starts fighting back, but he can't do it, and they kind of seem to win, but not. And then Silco comes up and kills Vander, and Vander tries to choke Silco out, and Vi is completely, you know, she is underneath a giant piece of metal and thrown it courtesy of the explosion by Powder from there. So there she is. She's that, and it is heavy, and she is saying, ow. Because it hurts. So she's not going in. Silco kills Vander, and then Vander falls down off this, you know, ominous bridge sort of thing, which is very ominous, down into the fire down here. And there's death down here. And it also destroys this lab to a degree. So kind of kudos to Powder for that. But from there, but then it turns out, and then they're coming to finish the job, but then it turns out that Vander is able to drink the purple fluid. and he comes back and he jumps back up. And Deckard, I think he kills. Yeah, he kills Deckard. He kills. So it's purple v purple from here, and he kills Deckard. The enemy purple guy dies, and then as he's sitting here, Vander's sitting here. He has a choice. You can see Vi, who is up here. So this is actually right here, and Silco is down here. You know, he's got to make a choice to save Vi or end Silco, and he makes his choice. Of course he does. He goes, and of course, I might not have explained, he drinks the purple liquid, which turns him into a giant monster thing, and then he kills the other giant monster, and then now he's going to go and he saves Vi. He jumps out, he saves Vi, and then collapses on the ground. So Vi is sitting there, and she's just watched Vander become a monster, save her, die. Well, he died, then saved her, and then presumably dies again because he didn't actually dies again. We don't actually see him die, but we think he dies for a second, and then it turns out he's not. But as far as she's understanding, you know, this is actually absolutely horrifying. And then Powder shows up, and she's like, wow, I'm so cool. Did you see that? You know, it worked. It finally worked. I am not a failure. You know, and this is this moment that she's saying. And then, so what you have, it's interesting, is we have two of the perspectives here that we're really building off of. We have Vi's perspective and we have Powder's perspective. And Powder's perspective is, I am not a failure, because of all the reasons that she's feared. And we understand that because we've seen all these little breadcrumb moments. And then Vi's perspective is, she's just going through all of this, and maybe it wouldn't have been as bad. You know, Powder probably did end up saving them, to be honest. But at the same point, she did kill Mylo and Clagger. And this is Vi's perspective. And then you have this complete clash, this great clash where we understand where both characters are coming from. You know, we understand where both characters are coming from. And the reason why is because each the story has built it up. We have all of Powder's little moments. We have all of Vi's moments. She's trying to protect. She's taking on the mantle. She has failed. They've both utterly, utterly failed in what they're trying to do. And then this is where we have this reaction, where Vi goes ballistic. Vi slaps Powder in the face and says, you killed Mylo and Clagger and ruined everything. You ruined everything. And you probably killed Vander. And of course then Powder starts having another meltdown, which we understand. We understand. She's already had one. Makes sense to have another. Powder starts having a meltdown, and she's like, you know, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I only wanted to help. I just wanted to help. And then Jinx is, not Jinx, Vi is like, why didn't you stay? Why didn't you just listen to me? Why didn't you just do what I said? You are a Jinx. And she starts repeating this line that Milo said, R.I.P. Milo, that Milo said, where it's, you ruin everything. You're a Jinx. You ruin everything. And so they start having this horrible moment where they're just fighting. But we understand where both characters are coming from. You know, you understand where Powder's coming from. Powder's in the wrong, probably. But then again, she did save them, kind of, I feel like. You know, she did kill like 20 to 30 of Silco's minions and probably destroy most of his purple-producing fluid lab. Like, she did a lot, but she also killed Milo, Clagger, almost killed Vi, and probably maybe almost killed Vander. You know, Vander was just freed. Their plan has just worked, and everything was snatched away by Powder. And all of this is building up for this conflict between the two of them. But we understand where they're both coming from. And so Vi leaves. Powder begs her, you know, don't leave me. Don't leave me. And this is almost the echo of this is again. Don't leave me again. Because remember, Vi left Powder. And don't leave me again. Vi leaves. And then Silco comes up. And sees Powder. And Vi is going to go back. But then something unexpected happens. A character suddenly appears by the name of Marcus. It seems that he has learned what's going on. He's now learning after watching it, and he drugs Vi with chloroform or whatever it is, and drags her away. He goes, and he's very much doing this to save her, because he's like, he'll kill you, which is very true. Silco would have killed her. But it gives Vi a great character moment where she realizes her mistake. That you don't leave your sister behind. And this is the other moment in this conflict. They have a great this echoing line, which will probably almost definitely show up again. She's not my sister. You're not my sister. So Powder's saying this because she's abandoned me twice. And so Powder, rather than being filled with remorse and all this other stuff, this goes back to the Huckleberry Finn problem, is that, they've been through all this trauma. They do not turn out as amazing kids, and they're not going to have an understanding reaction. The reaction they're going to have is going to be, like most people, they're going to get defensive. They're going to blame. This is one thing that I really appreciate about Ted Lasso with Nate. His reactions were so human, even though they were so cruel and ungrateful, but they were human and they were understandable because we built up towards us. She gets defensive, and so she goes on to the attack. She was never my sister. And then she jumps into Silco's arms, and Silco's like, I'm evil. I can use this. And he takes her in. And we understand what this all means, and that's where the episode ends. And it's like, bam, man, that is right in this whole crescendo is coming up. It's been building up because, again, the audience, we didn't know what was going to happen. Once you have this, what you get is you have this tension. This is the status quo where the Marcus is plotting and everyone's plotting and all this stuff is going on. And then the cop lady dies, Benzo dies, and the status quo is broken, and this tension just rockets up. And the audience has no idea what's going to happen. And you continue to have this continually go up and up and up, and then this keeps going up because we don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to rescue him? And just continues to go up and up and up. And it's just this great moment. It's really awesome, this moment where Powder and Vi seeing their conflict, because that's the heart of these two episodes, and this is what it's building towards. And I can almost guarantee you that this is what it's going to continue to build on for the rest of the show, because they're dynamic, the sister dynamic. You could go a bunch of different ways. You could have them be rivals, which is really what I think they're going to do, is they're going to set up this epic rivalry where they now hate each other. They have this shared history, and now they hate each other, and now the differences are getting to be more and more, and you can kind of see where they're going. They're clashing against each other. This rivalry now, these two sisters, where both of them have what you would consider just cause, or just cause enough given their characters, so that there's no clear or easy, one's a good guy, one's a bad guy from there. But yeah, I think that covers all of it. I hope you guys enjoy this one, and I will see you in the next.